Hello, I'm Toycat, and what happens after the Nether update comes out and you play one of your existing worlds with an existing Nether generated before that update? Well, actually, based on previous updates, this is a really simple question to answer because when world generation has changed, your existing world always stays exactly the same, and then when you explore new parts of it, those will generate with the new generation. This sometimes leads to very weird square borders of giant mountain stones and oceans and stuff like that when the generation is wildly different, but basically the world stays mostly the same with a few stitching errors. However, the Nether update is likely to be very different because we've never seen a update to the Nether of this scale before, and that's why I decided to load up one of my old worlds in the most current beta of 1.16, and indeed we can see how that exact thing has happened here. Things are not exactly the same as they are on the overworld. There is no hard chunk boundaries, which is a good sign at first, but there are some other weird artifacts such as this right here, where you can see the Nether fortress has lost one of its sides, where you can see how like the boundaries between biomes seems to get very weird with like, oh, what's that doing over there in the middle of a crimson forest? And you can see even weirder things if you look a little closer, because you can see how this Soul Sand Valley is right here next to this crimson forest, and then also that is next to the existing Nether. Some weird stuff is happening in other words, and that weird stuff gets even weirder if we look further in there, a little bit further in, where you can see part of the Nether fortress has been retained right over here, but it's a very, very, very tiny part that exists entirely separated from the rest of it. I have never seen a Nether fortress cut in half like this, and it's something that is very likely to happen in this update, it does seem, and we're going to be talking about exactly how and why. And rather than showing off on a random world where it's kind of hard for you to work out what exactly is going on here, how about I show you using the world that I'm most familiar with, my own Let's Play world. So that's precisely what I'm doing in today's video, which I hope you all enjoy. So this world is a great example for me to use, not only because it's one that I'm intimately familiar with, and you might be too if you watch the Let's Play series here on this channel, but the other reason that this is such a great world is because I have these big tunnels that I built in the Nether that do eventually stop. It goes about 80,000 blocks in that direction, and fortunately, for the sake of making this video easy for you to see much better, it only goes a few hundred blocks in this direction before where you can see the tunnel stops, and then after a few hundred more blocks where the blocks stop altogether. And then after another couple hundred of blocks, you can see where this stops altogether as well, where I haven't even been with my stone slabs, and the reason we can tell I haven't been further than this is because I literally couldn't have because of placing in the air. This means I can tell that I've been up to minus 433 blocks in this world, and because I did it in such a direct way, tunneling through here, I haven't been over there yet. I can see it, it looks like it's rendered in right, and I haven't been over there yet, but this means we get some really interesting data, as you can tell from this diagram. So if we use a very basic diagram to represent my Nether and the areas that I've directly explored in person with my feet, you'll see how it looks something like this. I've gone very far in this direction, like literally endlessly, and I've gone a certain amount in this direction, which means that you'd imagine the areas Minecraft has rendered in, i.e. I've seen them at some point, would look something like this on this way, and then it looks something like this on the other. This would give us, kind of usefully, a big area that we know we've explored, and potentially we'd have explored slightly further in each direction, but then down here in the bottom left, a place we haven't been to, we should be able to see this very interesting brand new generation when we load up in 1.16, but it's going to be brand new generation, which hits old generation in one place over here, in a second place over here, and in a third place over here. 3 parts of the old generation with 1 part of the new. Let's see how this looks, and let's see how Minecraft handles it, and let's also see how big this distance is between the explored part of the world and areas that Minecraft has rendered in, to see how far you have to explore to get brand new Nether areas. Right now we assume all of this could be brand new Nether, but it could be only this is brand new, or it could be even all of this is brand new. So I've now converted the world over to the 1.16 Nether update. This is just a copy. I don't intend on using this for anything besides this video, and as you can see, everything looks precisely the same. Your existing Nether does not change in this update. Don't let anyone tell you that it is. All of this counts as the Nether Waste biome, which is just a renamed way of saying the Nether before this update. But now the question is, how far do we have to go to get a biome that isn't one of these existing ones? So we fly forwards from that point right there. So if you look at my X coordinate, it's minus 433, and let's see how many blocks we have to go forwards before we see a brand new biome. We'll be able to tell when we spot one. Obviously there's a chance we just get more Nether wastes, but as you can see, we've gone 100 blocks and still not quite a brand new biome. But then as you can see, just in the forwards of this point, you can can see a very hard border where a brand new area has spawned. So as you can tell from the horde of skeletons trying to attack me, and much more interestingly, the line in the sand, literally, because soul sand, haha, I'm very funny, but you can see how there is a brand new biome over here exactly 120 blocks later. So 120 blocks works out to being just under 8 chunks, which means all we have to head from the very edge of where we'd explored, or what we know we've explored, is just 8 chunks forwards. So 8 chunks seems absurdly low given that my render distance is usually set to 22 to 30 chunks, but the reason that it's only 8 chunks is because in the Nether you have a significantly lower render distance, which means that yes, over there is the very edge of where I can see here on the Xbox version of the game, on my current production copy or whatever you want to call it, on the version I'm actually playing, the furthest I can see is over there, which means that when we switch over to the the beta, which we'll do again right now, you can see how just at the very edge it's still generating just like it used to, where I could see, again, you can even see the perfect line that it draws at the edge right there, and then as soon as we go past that point, it starts rendering in what it should have been all along as a soul sand valley, which means you get all the corresponding skeletons, which are the worst thing in the world, I think we can all agree. You get all the corresponding soul soil, which is genuinely exciting for making soul sand pathways because of the soul speed enchantment, but more importantly than whatever generates here, it generates new Nether just 8 chunks away, and actually slightly under 8 chunks if you calculate 8 times 16. So yeah, you don't even have to head 8 chunks beyond what you've explored in your Nether to get new generation, but more excitingly, your existing Nether's fine, and everything that you've seen next to your existing Nether is also fine. But to me, the way more exciting thing is the fact that, for instance, in my Let's Play world, in the world I intend to use, there is a Bastion remnant right over here. Again, we literally have to head 8 chunks out to get the new generation, and then a few chunks after that, we're talking within, literally like 60 blocks or something, we find ourselves a Bastion remnant. It's a really bad idea to stay here, but it is a real thing that exists. There is a lot of loot from there, including Gilded Blackstone, the block we all know is most powerful, and yeah, it's a really cool thing to see, right? Also, the the AI of the hoglins when they're next to this much lava is questionable at best, I would say. But as much as I'd love to make a whole video about hoglins falling into lava, this video is about how your old Nether is affected, so let's go look at some more spots rather than just this one particular place, because having a soul sand valley here, that's interesting, that's a clear indication, but you can see how also there's a crimson forest right here at the edge of this particular generation, and you can see how the way the world is generating is literally kind of making a curve around what I could see before. Like if it's 120 blocks to get to the the soul sand valley right over here, that much we know precisely, down to the the number, but you can see how after a little bit of a curve over here, the soul sand valley is not in a straight line like we've seen for previous updates, but instead it kind of curves diagonally. And the reason it goes diagonally is because if you think about how the field of view in Minecraft works, you see a kind of sphere around you, a circle around you, and as that circle ends, as what you could see before ends, the new generation can take hold instead. This is a huge step for Minecraft to take that you might not realize has happened, because now the way chunks load in and the way biomes load in and all the blocks doesn't seem to happen based on chunk boundaries, but instead it seems to happen just based on the individual blocks. You can tell that because of the weird literal diagonal lines going through right here, and obviously it has its casualties, like this tree is cut off in like a weird diagonal way, but previously this tree would have could have spawned with just its branches or just something else, but no, in this case, as you can see, it spawned everything it could on the other side of the line. This block right here, where it would have had a nether warp to represent the tree, cannot generate because it's part of the old world, but this block over here, as you can see, is part of the new world and therefore can have some nether warts. So yeah, the fact that this works, even though it does produce some weird results like this half-formed tree, has mostly positive effects because it means your biomes will blend pretty seamlessly, and the very few issues you should run across should be very easily fixable. I mean, just chop down this tree, or if you really want a tree here, you could place the things around the edge of it, or you can leave it as a monument to the very minor breakages that occur compared to what we've seen in the past. Again, I've showed off so many, you saw them at the start of the video. Here's another couple right now. When chunk boundaries happen with new update stuffs, things get very weird, and we've shown that off a lot of times before on the channel, so let's focus more on the Nether update right now. But to recap this one a little more, if you imagine you're the player right here, the way it's always worked for the overworld is that the game would load in a certain number of chunks around you, and it would look something like this. There would be a square around you that is rendered at all times, but the way it works here in the Nether update, at least on the Bedrock version, quite shockingly, what they've done instead is they generate a circle around you, the circle that needs to exist as far as, like blocks are concerned, but it just generates that circle. Anything outside of this circle, and indeed, every time you walk, every time this square moves, because let's say now you're over you know, like over here. Every single time you move, every single individual step you take. Okay, the squares aren't the same size. This is a very high quality diagram anyway, though. But like every single time that you move, the circle moves with you, and therefore you're kind of making like more of a elongated shape like this. But basically, you can now see that there's going to be more Nether around you in a circular pattern as opposed to a square one, which is pretty huge and different. To prove that point about the fact that the circle is always moving, we should see a straight line in this direction because we explored pretty much perpendicular to it. That is my big tunnel just over there. So if we head in this direction over here, what do we see? We see old Nether generation, again, right here. Looks like old generation, looks like old generation, looks like old generation. In fact, it could just be that there's a Nether waste here and that it would look the same regardless. But even when it is a Nether waste, you should start to see some difference at some point. Again, sometimes it's going to be pretty staggering. Like right here, for instance, you can see looking at the ceiling. New Nether generation. Yeah, we actually found some Nether gold ore here, which means that it happens so seamlessly, the transition between old and new, that I really didn't spot what's happening. The entire, guideline between here, which is clearly new Nether because it has new blocks, and between right back here is genuinely unspottable, which again is a great change for Minecraft, the fact that they can make the borders so seamless compared to how they used to look. This wall right here is the only other Nether generation change we've seen in Minecraft between the console version and the Bedrock edition, in case you switched over 3 years ago, as a lot of people did. You'll notice your old Nether kind of made this big wall into the new Nether. It was a very different type of generation, which as you can see is making itself clear from points like the ceiling over there, which transcends down to the floor down here. You can see that like, oh yeah, it used to be very square, very chunky, very messy, and very obvious, but right now, you can just walk into what is a new Nether chunk without ever really knowing that you were in an old one, or if you thought you were an old one, you could walk into a new one without realizing that it happened, because stuff like Nether gold ore will start to spawn. If we head another few thousand blocks away, then we can see another kind of crazy example. So again, I said I've explored 80,000 blocks in that direction. I think it's actually 125,000 because I walked to 1 million blocks in the overworld. I did it via the Nether, so I've got a huge corridor in that direction, literally 125,000 of them, roughly. But that means that parallel to that corridor is terrain that has been loaded in by Minecraft, so it'll be the equivalent of Nether wastes. And then next to that is the terrain that should exist, and it's going to happen in roughly a straight line. Again, you can see how there's a few blocks in and out every now and then, because clearly I went in and out to the right and left vaguely in some places while digging that tunnel. But it leads to a very kind of shocking end result right here, where we have a pretty much, again, the same thing we would expect from the overworld, where it's like a line of one biome and then a line of another, but it does look significantly better, it does have to be said, here than it does there. I mean, the only real glaring examples of like something being busted are right here in the ceiling, where you can see, like the ceiling is the tiniest bit Crimson Wastes, or Crimson Forest. But other than that, you can see how mostly it looks the same as you would expect. Another weird example of that is where you can see that clearly a Nether Fortress generated here, but in the new Nether generation, Nether Fortresses have been moved around, so as soon as that Nether generation kicks in, the Nether Fortress stops generating. But weirdly enough, because, maybe the Nether Fortress generates in like 3D chunks as opposed to other things, you can see how it stops in very weird places and very weird lines, leading to like these kind of cut-off elements, like right over here, leading to bits that go all the way down to the ground, but in weird ways. And if we head a little further into this place, you can see how it literally has this, this Nether Fortress right here going inside of the Nether Waste, which means that for a part of the Nether Fortress, they decided to keep it, and they decided to keep on generating it despite the fact that it is a Nether Waste. You can tell that because there is part of this basalt from the Nether Waste thing underneath the Nether Fortress, which means there is clearly some code in the game designed to handle whether or not a Nether Fortress should be there. It just doesn't work entirely accurately, as we can tell based on this monstrosity right here. And that's a bit weird in my opinion. But yeah, for most of the Nether, it is just this weird straight-ish line. If you explored in a straight line, if you didn't, it'll be much wavier, or more curvy, I guess I should say. But you'll have this straight line where new terrain generates as the biome the game wants to generate. And then before that, what you see instead is you see the old Nether that it used to generate before whenever you first load in those chunks. And yeah, I'd say this is a pretty seamless solution. If we dig below the ground, we would start to find ourselves, conveniently enough, some ancient debris as well. So yeah, that's something that I guess you should keep in mind. Yup, down below the ground, we can in fact find ourselves some netherite ore, or the ancient debris, as well as finding ourselves blackstone and the nether gold ore. All of the new things will generate from the top to the bottom, and the fact that it happens in this way is very, very interesting to me. In fact, actually, a key thing to test out here, something that this gets me curious about, is can you find, if it works in a circular pattern now, as opposed to using chunk boundaries, do you think below the ground in existing chunks you can find ancient debris if you've never explored? That's a question I have. Let's answer it on the spot right now, just because I'm curious. So right here, we have a very clear line to test it with. 552 is old Nether, 553 is new Nether. Let's do our good old-fashioned command that allows us to remove all of the, netherrack and replace it with, air, so that we can see where the blocks actually are. And now when we mine below the ground, actually, let's do it a little bit more on this side so we can see a good example. You can see how there is Nether gold ore almost spawning directly against the chunk. And then you can also see there's some glowstone down there. But yeah, it looks like over here, I don't see any Nether gold ore yet. But I could be mistaken. If we check exclusively old Nether, I've never been below the ground right here, as you can probably work out, because most people haven't. You can see how it is still the old stuff. You will not find ancient debris, and you will not find Nether gold in existing chunks. If you want to find those, make sure you go to a brand new biome, or at the very least, make sure you go somewhere where you can see that it's the new Nether. And the easiest way to check is if you find any new block, if it's a brand new tree, a brand new block, something like that, you'll know you're good. But also, the biggest things to look out for are blackstone and Nether gold ore. If you see those two things, you know you're either in a new chunk or someone in your world placed those things. And if you play solo, then you know if it wasn't you or you don't remember it being you, then that means you're in a new chunk. And then you can find yourself some Nether gold ore below the ground. And way more importantly, let's be entirely honest with ourselves, below that, what you'll find is you'll find yourself some blackstone, which maybe you like, and of course some ancient debris, which will exist somewhere here in this new chunk. Side note, by the way, I didn't know this, but below the soul sand valley biome, you will find soul sand in these random patches, which is kind of fun. But yeah, there we go. There is an ancient debris ore. You'll find at least one of these in every single chunk in the Nether. That's a fact I learned recently. I'm gonna talk about like the easiest way to incorporate that into your mining. But every single chunk in the Nether contains at least one ancient debris. It's usually more like 2 to 3, but like that means that you can find in your new Nether chunks some of these ancient debris, because even though the Nether updates in very weird diagonal ways, it should means that once you go past that diagonal line, you can find some ancient debris. However, because of that 1 per chunk rule, it is a much better idea not to mine right on the chunk boundary, as you can see I was doing right there, but instead to go a little bit further into it, just to guarantee that you will get some ancient debris, because otherwise you're gambling. Oh lord. Because even though this is clearly a new biome, this is clearly new generation, the fact is it's hard to say will you be guaranteed that 1 bit of ancient debris or not. It's a riskier place to mine right here, as opposed to literally just heading 40 blocks further in, going down here next to the Piglin Bastion, because there's a Piglin Bastion there, so why not? Head over here instead and use this as your place to mine, because you'll find an ancient debris if you mine below it. Again, if you want a guide on how to find ancient debris, as best we know, I've got a guide in the description down below. Actually, no one uses video descriptions, let's be honest. There's no guide in that description, so instead we'll just put it at the end card, or you can search on this channel how to find ancient debris. It's a useful little tip, but yeah, all you really want to do is just mine below the ground, and you'll find yourself the goodies that you want. Sometimes that's blackstone, sometimes it's soul sand. Oh, it was literally behind this gravel that there was some ancient debris. So yeah, just like that, pick yourself up some ancient debris. Did you know the ancient debris, when you smelt it, gives you the most experience of any item in the game? I bet you didn't know that until now. Or if you did, then good job. But whatever, get yourself some ancient debris, explore the new chunks. How do you know you're in a new chunk? You go over there. And what does the old Nether look like versus the current one? Pretty good, as it turns out. So I hope this video was useful to you to not only help you understand what happens when you play the brand new update on your existing worlds, because maybe like me, you treat your worlds as a very important thing that you don't want to have break in an update. It will not break. It actually works really seamlessly. Minecraft has done a good job at improving it, but you just need to know how to take advantage of that fact. If you did enjoy this video, like it and let me know. If you want to learn more about the Nether update, I have a playlist, which again, not linked down below, but will be in the end cards of this video. And thank you for choosing to spend your time with me today. If you want to spend some more, you can perhaps subscribe, and you'll see these sorts of videos every single day on your homepage. And it's a useful way to stay acquainted with the Nether update, which is coming out in a matter of weeks now, by the way. So stay tuned for that. Again, we'll be covering that a lot on this channel, as you can probably imagine. But either way, thank you for enjoying this video. Thank you for watching, and I'll see you all in the next one. We just got 15 blocks of gold. That's the real power of the Nether update. The amount of gold you can find in these bastions is crazy. But then you also just give it straight to the piglins, who this one is chilling underneath a lava fall, so maybe not the most stable piglin to be trading with. But yeah, no, thank you for watching. I'll see you next time. Goodbye.